And with no further ado, remove your caps and let's get on with our training. Thank you, Robert.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ron Peterson. I'm from out of Waco. I don't like using the mic. We'd like to ask you to hold all questions until this afternoon's session. Alan Sharp will be passing around 5x7 cards that you can write your questions on, and we will address as many questions as we possibly can this afternoon. If you do not have a pen, there are two boxes of pens in the back on tables. This morning we'll be covering filing a claim, steps involved, the paperwork that is needed, and what a post-service officer can and cannot do. Out of the Houston Regional Office, we have Edward Reyes, you can call him Ed. We also have Mike Lacey. There's their information. If anybody needs me to leave this up for a second, let me know. Out of Waco, we have myself and Alan Sharp. Also, if you'd like a copy of these slides, let me know on a 5x7 and I will send them to you. And please print legibly. If I cannot read it, I cannot send it to you. Types of claims we'll discuss are your original claim, reopened or reconsidered claim, DIC or death pension, dependency, education, and your notice of disagreement or your nod, as some of you will hear it. The VA offers many different kinds of benefits that are available to veterans and their family members, dependents, and survivors. The most widely accessed benefits are disability compensation and pension benefits. These benefits are administered by the VA Compensation and Pension, or CMP services. VA Disability Compensation Pension is a monthly payment that is available to eligible veterans to compensate them for a disability that is the result of their military service. A formal claim, or the original claim, first time filed. VA claim process has changed. As of March 24th, 2015, the VA will no longer accept a letter from a veteran to start a claim. Claimants for VA benefits are now required to start a claim by either filing an intent to file or by sending a completed application form to the VA. Because the date from which you will receive benefits is the date the VA receives a claims form, it is highly recommended, if at all possible, that you quickly contact an accredited representative, such as a service officer who works for a national or state veteran service organization, and have them help you file a claims form. Under 38 CFR, subsection 3.155 Bravo, there are three ways to submit an intent to file. Either electronically, that is you doing it yourself through e-benefits if you have an account, on a VA Form 21-0966, which is the intent to file a claim for compensation and or pension, or survivor pension and or DIC. Or you can do it orally, either through a telephone call or in person at the regional office or other claims intake center. Now, if you do this orally over the phone, it has to be taken by a qualified VA employee who can take that claim. Cannot be just you calling and saying, hey, I want to file a claim. If that person is not authorized to do that, it doesn't count. Forms we need to have when we file your claim is the VA Form 2122 for representation, also known as your POA, power of attorney. An intent to file form, VA Form 21-0966. We must have a completed copy of a VA Form 21526EZ. Veteran, you need to obtain a copy of your service medical records and treatment records. If you need to get lay statements or buddy statements about the issues that you're going to claim. Check with the Department Service Officer for further development and submit it directly to the Department Service Officer, not the VA Regional Office. If we have your power of attorney and you submit it directly to the regional office, they might lose it. If you submit it to us, we can track it and follow it, and you call us and let us know where it's, ask us where it's at, then we can answer your question. If you submit it directly to the regional office, we're not going to know. Not right away, at least. This is your VA Form 2122. Mr. Jones is filing to have his representation for the American Legion. When you fill these forms out, we need to make sure if you handwrite them, we can read them. Because if we can't read them, we can't file them. 3B, we put any accredited representative. The American Legion is a national organization. We also have accredited representatives in Europe. So if the veteran moves, he doesn't have to change his POA. Needs to make sure he has a Social Security number on there. I couldn't email this with a Social Security number in it, so it's not there. But make sure the Social Security number is in there. A legible, good mailing address. A phone number. It doesn't have to have both. You can have one or the other. Today they're asking for email addresses. We can file it electronically through SEP, well, as long as he's filed a claim before through SEP. We need to have an email address. It makes it easier for us. And a date that he wants to appoint the POA. Needs to make sure Block 12 is checked. If Block 12 is not checked, we cannot take the POA. What this does is this authorizes the representative to look into the file. If it's not checked, we can't look in the file. If he checks anything in Block 13, we're blocked from access into the veteran's file. Block 14 gives us authorization to change the veteran's address. If the veteran decides to move, which we have a lot of them that do move quite a bit, that's one of the last things you're worried about is changing your address with the VA. All they got to do is call us. Hey, Ron, I moved. This is my address. Can you get it changed for me? That's fine. The only thing we can change is your address on the benefits side of the VA, not the medical. If you want your address changed on the medical side, you need to go to your nearest clinic. They need to make sure they sign it. The veteran must sign this. If you have power of attorney from the state, doesn't matter. You cannot sign it. The veteran must sign it. And you make sure they date it. Only an accredited representative can sign this form. And they need to make sure they date it. We get a lot from other states that are not signed by the accredited representative. Now we're going to move on to the VA Form 21966. This veteran's going for compensation. It was already checked when I did it. Mr. Jones has filed his intent to file. Again, you need to make sure he puts his Social Security number in there. His date of birth on this form. Make sure he checks whether he's a male or a female. If he's ever filed a claim before. The VA file number is not really that important. If he knows it, he can put it in there. If not, we can use the Social Security number. And those of us that have filed lately, our VA file number is our Social Security number. Make sure he's got a correct current mailing address. The current phone number, and email address again. Make sure the veteran signs this. All right, now comes the fun form. This is 2126. This is where a lot of people are having a lot of problems. You can make sure his name's on there, his Social Security number. Has he filed a claim before? Here he says he hasn't filed a claim before. Put his date of birth, his sex. Is he currently at risk of being homeless? Mr. Jones is not currently at risk of being homeless. If he was, then in 6 Bravo or 8 Bravo, he would put a point of contact. We as the DSOs are not the point of contact. He put the point of contact's phone number. His point of contact could be family member. Put which branch of service they served, whether they were active, reserve, or National Guard. Put their current mailing address again. Now, for the next block, 10 Bravo, if you've got somebody that is about to get out of the military or they know they're going to move, they can put in a forward mailing address and then the effective date that it's going to take effect. Once that's supposed to take effect, they need to call either their DSO where they're moving to or one of us and ask and make sure that that new mailing address took effect. If it didn't, as long as they check block 14 in the 2122, we can check and fix their mailing address for them. They can put their phone number and preferred mailing or email address again. They can put their Social Security number up on the top of the page. All right, here's where we have a lot of fun with the veterans. Mr. Jones is claiming he has hearing loss and tinnitus. What other issues could we claim? Say again. Diabetes. What else? PTSD. How about Agent Orange? Can we claim Agent Orange?
Skin cancer, no.
We cannot claim Agent Orange. Skin cancer, I heard?
Yes.
All right.
Sleep apnea.
Sleep apnea. The reason we cannot claim Agent Orange is not a disease. It is a chemical. All right. You can claim like diabetes due to Agent Orange or herbicide exposure, but you need to put where it was. Like the example, exposed 1272 to 9. All right. You've got, I didn't make it all the way down. I think it's almost 20 issues you can put on the form. So if you're assisting the veteran with this, make sure all the issues you're claiming can be proven through their STRs, through their service treatment records, or that there's some way that can be proven. All right, don't just throw a bunch of stuff on there. If they're a male, you can't claim PMS. You cannot claim hysterectomy. Where's Alan? What was the other things that we found?
Besides the Agent Orange?
No, the female ones that were being claimed by a male.
No, the one we had was the hysterectomy. One, put ovarian cyst on a 526 easy, and was male. So when you're helping the veterans, please make sure that if a gentleman or a lady is claiming, say, diabetes from Agent Orange, please make sure their date of services coincide with that time period. I have a veteran now who's, are you covering that?
We're almost there.
Okay, I won't take your thunder away then.
Make sure the issues that they're claiming pertain to the anatomy they have. Okay? So don't let them sit there and tell you, don't sit there and let them tell you that they had a hysterectomy and they're a male. Okay? We'll move on. Block 14 lists the VA medical centers that they've had treatment at. Put the dates in. Now, a lot of them can't remember the exact dates that they went because they might have went way back in the 80s or the 70s or the 60s. Try to get as close as possible as you can. You know, some of them have been to quite a few. Mr. Jones went to a whole lot of them. You know. But just put them on there. And hopefully Mr. Jones did actually go to these centers. The VA will check. All right, Mr. Jones did not serve under another name. All right. Now, this is what Alan was talking about. His most recent active service entry date. Mr. Jones served January 1st of 1875 and got out January 1st, 1776. He messed up.
You laugh, that happens.
He put the wrong dates in there, and it does happen. You know, so we've got to figure out what his real dates are and fix it. He has not served in a combat zone since 9/11. Mr. Jones did not remember where his place that he got out at or where his anticipated place of getting out at. So we really got to figure this out. Now also, do not just line through this page. Each form that you assist the veteran in filling out, you need to fill this out. Don't just line through it. Please. He's not currently receiving inactive pay. He's not currently activated or on federal orders. He was not a prisoner of war. He did receive severance pay though, or separation, severance, or retired pay. He received $199,999.99 for severance pay. All right. He's going to pay this back. A lot of veterans are saying they're not told that they've got to pay their severance pay back. When they find out this, they're mad. Well, when my son was medicaled out, I told him they're going to offer you severance pay, don't take it. And they tried to force it on him. I said, stand firm, don't take it. You're going to have to pay it back. They don't tell him that when they're telling him you're going to get a severance pay. Well, luckily he didn't take it. There's a lot of people that do, and they're not told. Either that or they're told and they're just not listening. So let them know if they put something here and it's for severance pay, please let them know. You're going to have to pay it back. All right. Mr. Jones has a checking account. If they feel they're going to get rated and it's going to be a compensatable rating, they're going to to put their banking information for direct deposit for the VA. Well, now Mr. Jones says he's collecting VA disability because he has an established account with the VA. So we got to go back through and fix his form, right? If you remember, we'll go all the way back up to the top. Mr. Jones clicked no, he's never filed with the VA before. So now we got to fix it and find out what he actually did. That's why, if you guys assist these veterans in filling out these forms, we need to make sure that they do it properly. Okay?
I just got one point of it. When they fill this form out here, make sure you've got a copy of their DD form 214 in front of you. Because all your information that you're putting on there is on that DD form 214.
Right. Did you all hear what he said? Make sure you have a copy of their DD form 214 when we're filling out these forms. Because if you have a copy of their 214 when we do this, the issue with the dates of service won't be wrong. We can fill in that properly then. Because like him coming in 1875 and getting out in 1776 will be fixed. You know, and it'll be easily fixed then. Because you got your proof of service right there. So if they bring you a copy of their DD 214 with them when you assist them in filling out these forms, you don't have that issue. Make sure the veteran signs and dates this form. Let's go back. There's a box.
Next page. Next page up, Ron.
Next one.
Yes, sir.
You know which box? All right. Box 21. I want military retired pay instead of VA compensation. We inform our veterans to leave that one unchecked, even though that confuses a lot of them. Okay? Because right now, up until the point, correct me, Ed, if I'm wrong, up until the point that you get 50% or higher in your VA disability, it's a $1-for-$1 swap off your retirement. If you're not a retiree, it doesn't really bother you any. But it's a $1-for-$1 swap. Your VA compensation will be lower, okay, until you get over 50% or higher. And then they start pulling it back in until you get your entire VA compensation. So just leave that blank. Don't check that box, okay? Did I say that right, Ed?
Yep.
All right. Reopen and reconsider claim. Any application for a benefit received after filing disallowance of an earlier claim. Basically what that says is you got your rating decision off your original claim and they denied it. All right, we'll go off of the hearing and tinnitus of Mr. Jones. What you want to do is we're going to reopen the claim or do a reconsideration. Any application based on additional evidence, new and material evidence is what NME stands for. We're doing that. Now, when you get your rating decision and your notification letter, it tells you you have up to 1 year from the date of notification letter to file for an appeal. So we're sitting there, we're getting close to the end of our year. Now and we haven't heard anything back from the VA. They haven't made a decision one way or another. We're going to request for a personal hearing submitted more than 90 days following notification of the appellate of the certification of any appeal and transfer of the applicable records to the Board of Veterans Appeals, which was not considered by the board in its decision and was referred to the agency of original jurisdiction for consideration as provided in 38 CFR subsection 20.1304 Bravo 1 of this chapter. All right. The original jurisdiction is the regional office that made the decision. So if it was Waco, Waco will have to make the decision on the reopen or reconsideration. If it was Houston, they're the ones that have to do it. If it was Montana, Montana has to do it. All right? All right, this is a 3-step process. Must produce medical evidence of a present disabling problem, physical, mental, or a combination of the two. Must show that the veteran had a problem while on active service. Nexus between the in-service problem and the current one. Nexus means a link. All right, consider this. A plausible claim consists of 3 basic elements the claimant must prove in order to get a foot in the door. Even though the 3-step process is met, the claimant is still a long way from service connection when the claim is well-grounded. Fail the VA's well-grounded test and the claimant is out before the contest scarcely begins. All right. A diagnosis of a current disability with medical documentation supporting the diagnosed disability. Must show he had an injury or disease that led to the current disability or aggravated a pre-existing condition. Service medical records are the easiest way of proving this. All right. Ways of proving it also are your service medical records, military file for presumptive cases like PTSD, herbicide exposure, and ionizing radiation. A POW registry, your buddy statements, and presumptive conditions. Now, your buddy statements, those are a big thing. If you still are in contact with your buddy, ask him. That's all you got to do. Ask him, hey, I'm putting in a claim for sleep apnea. Do you remember how bad I snored while we were in the field? If you were a snorer, they probably complained about you a lot, stuck you way in the back corner of that GP medium. You know, or put you on guard duty first, so that way everybody else can fall asleep before you fell asleep. All right, nexus between the in-service problem and the current diagnosed one. For example, proving a positive medical link or relationship between the in-service problem and current problem. Some doctor has to state in writing that based on his or her examination of the veteran, it is probable that today's medical problem is related to that injury the veteran sustained many years ago. The doctor also needs to state that they reviewed your service treatment records. That's why it is important that the veteran has a copy of their service treatment records. So that way they can say they reviewed them. That is one of the ways that the VA gets around. If that doctor didn't say they reviewed your records, they get around and saying, well, he didn't review your records, so there's no proof that he really actually knows. Physicians as a group are not known to be prone to speculation. They like hard scientific evidence. So nexus has become a stumbling block for countless veterans trying to well-ground their claims. Are there ways to attack the nexus problem? You betcha. All right, 5 ways to get service connected. There's direct, aggravated, presumptive, secondary, and 1151 claim. The current condition is the subsequence of an injury caused by the VA healthcare, VA training, and rehabilitation services, or by participating in a VA compensation work therapy program. The 1151 should only be done by the DSOs. 1151 is a very hard claim to work. All right. Direct service connection. The VA rating board members are trained to consider direct service connection first when they deal with any claim for compensation benefits. The phrase means that a disease, injury, or event during a veteran's active military service directly caused a current disability. It can be established in a variety of ways. The most common way is to satisfy the 3 requirements by submitting medical evidence of a current disability, lay or medical evidence of an in-service occurrence of a disease, injury, or event, and medical evidence that links the current disability to the precipitating disease, injury, or event in service. So basically, if it's in the veteran's medical records, you got a better chance of getting direct service connection, as long as they went on sick call more than once for the disease or injury. They need to show chronicity for that. Presumptive service. These are all out of the CFR on or after January 1, 1947, before January 1, 1947. Disease subject to presumptive service connection. When in doubt, contact the Department of Service Officer. We won't worry about contacting Waco, just contact Houston. Ed says he likes to get the phone calls on these. Now you can contact either one. We don't mind. But if you do, ask for Alan.
I don't mind.
Subsection 3.301, presumptive service connection, peacetime service before 1947. Is there anybody in here that served before 1947? We do have some that still serve. I actually went and visited a World War II veteran. He was in before 1947. Great little old man. He was only about yay tall. Chronic disease, there is no provision for presumptive service connection for chronic disease as distinguished from tropical diseases referred to in paragraph B of this section on peacetime service before January 1, 1947. In claims based on peacetime service before January 1, 1947, a veteran of 6 months or more service who contracts a tropical disease listed in subsection 3.309 Bravo, or a resultant disorder or disease originating because of therapy administered in connection with a tropical disease, or as a preventative, will be considered to have incurred such disability in service when it is shown to exist to the degree of 10% or more within 1 year after separation from active service, or at a time when standard and acceptable or accepted treaties indicate that the incubation period commenced during active service unless shown by clear and unmistakable evidence not to have been of service origin. The requirement of 6 months or more service means active, continuous service during one or more enlistment periods. As you see, just about everything we talk about for service connection, for anything really, has to be compensatable to 10% or more within 1 year, which I don't like to bash the VA a whole lot, but a lot of that doesn't seem right. Secondary service connection. If a disability has been service connected and that disability directly or indirectly causes another disability, the new disability can be service connected as secondary to the primary service connected disability. The new disability will be treated as if it were a result of the veteran's military service and will be evaluated for a separate disability compensating rating. If a disability that existed prior to a service-connected disability has been aggravated by a service-connected disability, the pre-existing disability may be service-connected and assigned a rating that reflects the extent to which that disability has increased in severity due to the service-connected disability. All right. Give me an example of secondary service, Dan.
Disabled left leg, requiring you to use more of your right. Increased wear on your right.
Okay. So, right knee condition causing your left knee to go. All right. So, your left knee secondary to your right knee because your left knee was bad, so you want a secondary to your right knee. It has worked. Any others?
Blindness secondary to diabetes.
Say again.
Blindness secondary to diabetes.
Blindness secondary to diabetes, glaucoma. What else? Yes, sir.
Sciatic nerve pain due to back injury,
Sciatic secondary to back injury.
lower extremity.
All right. Lower radiculopathy secondary to sciatic.
Let me bring that up. If you served in service during the World War II and the Korean War, your record cannot find it. They were burned up in 1972. Because I was in the Korean War, got my eyes mixed up and my back, and they say there's no record. But I got the DD 214 and talking about service pay. We got separated. It's called separation pay. We only got 1 month. I got $30. That's what I got paid. But the record for them, Korean and World War II record, is no longer available.
Right.
That's their person.
What he was saying was he was talking about the building in St. Louis burning to the ground in the 70s. All right. Aggravated service connection. This is out of subsection 3.310. Disabilities that are approximately due to or aggravated by service-connected disease or injury. Except as provided in subsection 3.300, disability which is approximately due to or the result of a service-connected disease or injury shall be service-connected. When service connection is thus established for a secondary condition, the secondary condition shall be considered a part of the original condition. Aggravation of non-service connected disability and an increase in severity of a non-service connected disease or injury that is approximately due to or the result of a service connected disease or injury, and not due to the natural progress of the non-service connected disease will be service connected. However, VA will not concede that a non-service connected disease or injury was aggravated by a service connected disease or injury unless the baseline level of severity of the non-service connected disease or injury is established by medical evidence created before the onset of aggravation or by the earliest medical evidence created at any time between the onset of aggravation and the receipt of medical evidence establishing the current level of severity of the non-service connected disease or injury. The rating activity will determine the baseline of current levels of severity under the schedule for rating disabilities. That's in CFR 38 CFR Part 4. And determine the extent of aggravation by deducting the baseline level of severity as well as any increase in severity due to the natural progress of the disease from the current level.
What did you just say?
All right. Let me see if I can break this down in the public school terms.
Can I try, Ron?
Go ahead.
I'm Alan, I'm with the Waco office. What this basically says is,
What it basically says is, this is my public education guess, and we read this every day, is that on the secondary condition will only get rated as the primary condition aggravated it. So if your left knee is compensating for your service-connected right knee, and let's say the limitation actually rates a 30% rating, but the service-connected knee is really only causing it to be, say, a 10% limitation of motion, then that left knee will be rated only as far as the primary condition aggravates it. Does that kind of help smooth the waters a little bit on that? So yeah, what do you mean no, Ed? We do this every day.
I hope that kind of explains how that works when it comes to aggravations for secondary.
All right. I have a pre-existing condition with my kidney. Okay. That is non-service connected, even though they found it in while I was on active duty and not prior. But the VA says it's a prior, it's a pre-existing condition. So they say it's a birth defect. Go figure. But they secondaried it to my hypertension. Okay? Is that kind of working it out a little bit for you? So my hypertension and my kidney disease is only at 10% because the hypertension is 10% for me. But the kidney is secondary to the hypertension. It's the way the VA words it, you need a law degree to understand it. Right. Right. And we sit there, I've read this statement I don't know how many times, and I did go to public school, I wasn't very good. And I scratched my head, and one day I actually banged my head on a book. So, and some days it does click into my head to where I do understand it. Right. And the next day I just don't understand even the first sentence.
Is this the equivalent of like your arm got broke twice, and once was because of your VA disability, and once was because of your brother? They only pay you for how much of it was because of the VA?
No, if your arm got broke twice, it doesn't matter. It's only broke. You only gonna get paid for it being broke once. We'll move on to cardiovascular disease. Ischemic heart disease and other cardiovascular disease developing in a veteran who has a service-connected amputation of one lower extremity at or above the knee, or service-connecting amputations of both lower extremities at or above the ankles, shall be held to the approximate results of the service-connected amputation or amputations.
Ron?
I have a situation that a member in my district has had a claim that was done previously. He had actually had a knee replacement done by the VA. He's having problems with it now. They're thinking it's non-service related.
We're gonna do the question.
Okay, we're going to move on to lay evidence. All right. Lay evidence is statements from persons not trained in a medical profession. All right. May be especially important in cases where an undiagnosed illness is manifested solely by the symptoms which the veteran reports and might not be verifiable by medical examination. Based on personal observation or experience, is credible if the person making the statement is or was in a position to know the facts attested to the statement is sufficiently specific to address the facts, and statement is not contradicted by evidence of record that is more credible. On occasion, the latest statement may require clarification. Generally, however, unless there is reason to doubt the statement's credibility, the VA will not attempt to corroborate. Check it out. All right. And they won't unless you sit there and say you shot the senator's nephew because he was messing with the senator's nephew's wife. But you didn't go to jail because you were justified in shooting him. And then they'll tell you the evidence is not credible. You know, and that was actually a claim for PTSD. So lay evidence, buddy statements, they are very important. If you have a veteran who has been married for 60 years, is claiming PTSD, and his wife is his high school sweetheart, she knows him. Well, basically all our wives know us. You know, they know us better than we do. So a wife would be a very good person to do the statements. A very good person. You know. And the spouse is very credible, unless you got one of those spouses that's just going to go way off the deep end because she's mad at her husband. Individual unemployability. All right. Total disability ratings for compensation may be assigned where the scheduler rating is less than total, when the disabled person is, in the judgment of the rating agency, unable to secure or follow a substantially gainful occupation as a result of service-connected disabilities, provided that if there is only one such disability, this disability shall be rateable at 60% or more, and that if there are two or more disabilities, there shall be at least one disability rateable at 40% or more, and sufficient additional disabilities to bring the combined rating to 70% or more. For the above purpose of one 60% disability or one 40% disability in combination, the following will be considered as one disability. Disabilities of one or both upper extremities or of one or both lower extremities, including the bilateral factor if applicable. Disabilities resulting from common etiology or a single accident. Disabilities affecting a single body system, for example, orthopedic, digestive, respiratory, cardiovascular, renal, or neuropsychiatric. Multiple injuries occurring in one action, or multiple disabilities incurred as a prisoner of war. It is the established policy of the VA that all veterans who are able to secure and follow a substantially gainful occupation by reason of service-connected disabilities shall be rated totally disabled. Therefore, rating boards should submit to the Director of Compensation and Pension Service for extra scheduler consideration all cases of veterans who are unemployable by reason of service-connected disabilities, but who fail to meet the percentage standards set forth in paragraph A of this section. The rating board will include a full statement as to the veteran's service-connected disabilities, employment history, education, and vocational attainment, and all other factors having a bearing on the issue. All right. This is a confusing one for a lot of veterans, because when they get their rating, they feel that, okay, I'm now unemployable. Say they're at 70%, 50% for sleep apnea, they feel that they're unemployable now. Sleep apnea is not going to make you unemployable. I'm sorry, it's not. Even though the VA sends you a letter saying that you can file for temporary unemployability, that's not going to make you unemployable. Let's see. All right. Trying to think of an example that would.
PTSD.
PTSD at 70%. That's a possibility that it could. 100% PTSD will make you unemployable, but that also puts you at 100%, so you don't need unemployability. If you're 70 PTSD, well, you need more than 30 to get. No, if you're at 70% PTSD, you can just file for it and see what they do. But you need more than 30% to get to 100%, and we'll cover that in a little while. Trying to think of other ways of doing the IU. Somebody give me an example.
Back injury or lower extremity injuries.
Okay. He said back injuries and lower extremity. They're going to have to be rated pretty high. I have back injuries and I have lower extremity.
How about
Knees? Knees would have to be pretty high. Even those that have amputations of the lower extremities do not get IU right away. We had a veteran at the Waco Regional Office that had double amputations below the knees, and he was working. So IU is a case-by-case basis of, well, really on whether they want to do it or not. Ed, do you have any examples?
I don't cover it, but it's close to a break.
Is it? Okay. All right. Let's take a 15-minute break. And come back.
Yes, please. If you
Please come back.
if you already have questions on the